Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to call the meeting to order. This is a Calabasas City Council meeting of February 25th, 2026. It is 7 p.m. Tonight I'm joined by all the council members, Mayor Pro Tem Albrecht and council members Crouch, Shapiro, and Weintraub. I'd remind everybody, if you'd like to provide public comment, these forms are in the back. Please fill one out so that we have it promptly and we're able to call on you. Now I'm going to have someone lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Curtis, you want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, as far as approval of the agenda, I understand that item number 10, the staff is requesting that that item be pulled. Is that correct, Curtis?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we're going to, I'd ask for a motion to approve the agenda with item 10 deleted. And I know I have speaker cards on it. You can speak in public comment because then it won't be on the agenda. So I have it up here.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Passes unanimously. We have a presentation to make, and that is the Employee Service Recognition Awards. So what I'll do now is I will come down there, and I'll give the awards one by one, and then when I'm done, we'll take a group picture. Thank you for reminding me. Closed session report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. We did discuss the two items listed on the closed session agenda with existing and potential litigation. After discussion of matters, no reportable action was taken on either item.
Okay, now I'm coming down for the handheld mic. So we like to mark these milestones for our employees who have served the city well, and we do them in 5-year increments. So we have tonight, several of the employees are here, and I'll announce the ones who aren't here as well. So we're going to start out with Shanta Williams. Why don't you come up here, Shanta? And whenever I walk into the library, you can come right up here, Shanta. Whenever I go into the library, I want you to know that she always smiles and she always says, "Hello, James, how are you doing?" And I'm not always the most friendly person when I'm in public. I'm kind of a little bit shy. So, but thank you for that. I know you're very well loved in the library. Shanta began her career at the library in 2005 as a part-time library clerk and became a full-time city employee in 2020. Since stepping into a role as library technical services coordinator, she has grown into a vital leader within the library. Over the past 5 years, Shanta has seamlessly taken on supervisorial responsibilities, demonstrating a natural ability for leadership, organization, and coordination. Known for her calm and composed demeanor, she provides steady support to the public and sets a strong example of professionalism for her team. We are grateful for her dedication and look forward to her continued success. Shanta, you're getting a 5-year service award, and here we are. We'll take pictures, right? So here's this. And here's a certificate, which I'll hold. And take a picture. We'll take one at the end of these records.
And ready, 3, 2.
Thanks. We're moving on to the 10-year awards, and that is Deborah Cohen. So Deborah Cohen began her career with the city in 2015 and serves as a fitness instructor whose passion for dance, fitness, and public service has made a lasting impact on the community. Trained in ballet, jazz, tap, and modern dance, she has built her career around promoting wellness through movement. For the past 10 years, Deborah has served at the Calabasas Tennis and Swim Center, where she has consistently attracts strong class attendance and is known for her flexibility, dependability, and the respect she earns from both participants and staff. Deborah's energy, professionalism, and leadership truly make a difference. Congratulations, Deborah. Shanta, if you stay with us 5 more years, you get a clock. Next is 15 years. It's hard to believe 15 years has passed, and we're giving a service award to Michael McConville. Okay. Where's the gift?
It's on back order.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's on back order. Okay.
It's a really, really nice tie.
I'm looking at a certificate.
It's a great tie, yeah.
Yeah, if you stay with us long enough, all you get is a certificate. Okay. Michael began his his career with the city in 2010 as an office assistant in administrative services, supporting the human resources and city clerk divisions. After earning his master's degree in 2013, he was promoted to accounting specialist in the finance department. He returned to administrative services in 2017 as a human resources specialist, later advancing to management analyst in the city manager's office in 2019. In 2022, he served as interim administrative services manager before being appointed deputy city manager in 2023. Throughout his career, Michael's played a key role in advancing major city initiatives, including the development of the city's Veterans Garden, implementation of the city's strategic plan, oversight of the city's response and support efforts for individuals experiencing homelessness, launch of the COVID-19 Small Business Grant Program, and strengthening the city's risk management and employee development programs. Michael is widely recognized for his institutional knowledge, collaborative approach, and dependable work ethics. His ability to manage strategic initiatives across departments and build strong relationships with internal and external stakeholders makes him an invaluable member of the city's leadership team. Michael and his wife, Desiree, are the proud parents of 2 boys, and they're all here today. So, Michael, congratulations. And finally, a 20-year award to somebody who grew up here. And I've been around so long, I remember you when you were a kid, basically. His father, by the way, was a longtime active member, Calabasas Park HOA president, and ran for the first city council, and knew him well. So Michael Klein, congratulations on reaching 20 years. Michael... You have a fan club over there. Michael began his career with the city in 2004 as a planning intern and quickly proved himself to be a natural fit for the profession. He was promoted to planning assistant in 2005, associate planner in 2006, planner in 2013, senior planner in 2017, and ultimately to community development director in March 2022. Moreover, Michael was recently accepted to Stanford University's Local Governance Summer Institute. This program will strengthen participants' capacities in public finance, negotiation, and strategic planning while exposing participants to innovative solutions and technological advancements. With family roots in Calabasas, Michael brings both professional expertise and a deep personal commitment to the community he serves. He is known for going the extra mile to assist applicants, support colleagues, and ensure projects are handled thoughtfully and thoroughly. Michael and his wife, Laura, are the proud parents of 2 boys, and their family is rounded out by a beloved golden doodle, and all of them are here today, including your mother. So, congratulations, Michael. We're giving you a decanter set for use at home, not in the office. Okay, so if I can get all... before we do, yes, we're going to do all those shots. I would like just the recipients to come up here, and then they can, the whole group family can come up here for another photo. But before I do that, we had several employees who could not come tonight. I just want to list their names and announce what awards they're getting. So we had Noam Saravi, fitness staff from Community Services, 5-year service. We can hold applause. Hey, we can hold applause because they're not here. Lisa London, fitness instructor 2, community service, 10 years. Mozen Ranamai, library, 10 years. Marvin Martinez, facility supervisor for community services, 10 years. Alessia Shkolkina, sorry. I took Russian for 2 years, and I can't do this. Fitness instructor, community services, 15 years. Don Newman, fitness instructor 2, community services, 15 years. Kathy Friedlander, fitness instructor 2, community services, 15 years. Amy Calvert, fitness instructor, community services, 15 years. Rosalinda Werner, fitness instructor 2, community services, 15 years. Linda Jones, fitness instructor 2, community services, 15 years. Susan Perkel, fitness instructor 2, community services, 15 years. Johnny Ray Agee, maintenance inspector, public works, 20 years. Alex Savala, building inspector, community development, 20 years. Now you can applaud. So if I could get the council to join me down here, and the city manager and the city attorney, if you'd like to be in here too. What we're going to do, 2 sets of photos. One is going to be with just the award recipients, and the next one's going to be with them and their families and us. So please come up here.
Right now, you're good. It should be okay. Yeah, that's good. Even it out. Yep, this is good. All right, everyone ready? Look right here for me. Ready, 3, 2, 1. That should do it. Thank you.
Okay, Kathy, first, you want to come up here? We'll take one bigger shot. You brought it down.
Yeah, we'll squeeze in. Oh, sure. Yeah. This is good. Let me see if I can't see anyone. No, you're all good. Everyone ready? All right. Look right here for me. 3, 2, 1. Perfect.
Okay, then if you would do one more. Thank you.
We have one more award to give, and this is a recognition for Rick Young for the sponsorship and in-kind support benefiting the Senior Center. We're joined today. Rick, why don't you come up here? And Rick is a familiar face because he volunteers countless hours of his own time and his efforts. I don't know how much time you spend at home doing this, but it must be a lot. On everything from toy drives to Senior Center activities, and everybody knows and loves him. So we're lucky to have you, and you're a resident. So tonight we have the pleasure of recognizing a city employee whose dedication has made a meaningful impact on our Senior Center and our community. Rick Young is a Senior Center recreation attendant. This year, he secured more than $32,000 in sponsorships to support our 2026 Senior Center programs and events. Over the past couple of years, Rick has secured more than $60,000 in sponsorships overall. His efforts strengthen our partnerships with local businesses and the community, and they help reduce costs that would otherwise come from the city's general fund. Rick has brought in monetary donations for events such as Valentine's Bingo, the Senior Center 10th Anniversary, Aloha Fest, and Holiday Cheer. He has also secured gift cards for prizes and raffles, which adds value and excitement to our programs and events. Rick also secured ongoing in-kind support that benefits our members every day. Blinky's Donuts, Ralph's, Trader Joe's, and Costco provide baked goods each week or daily refreshments for the participants who use the senior center, and I can attest to that personally. These donations enhance the experience for our members and help offset costs throughout the year. This is a great example of teamwork within a department. While Rick is securing sponsors, the events team, led by Maya Basham and Scarrett Osorio, are coordinating unforgettable events for the community, and our front desk staff helps keep everything moving, selling tickets for events that often sell out within just a few days. Rick, thank you for your dedication to our Senior Center members and to the City of Calabasas. Your hard work and commitments are truly appreciated. Please join me in recognizing Rick Young. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Can I say a few words? Can you say something else? James, can you say something? Yes.
Let me turn around this way. I've been a part of the Savvy Senior community for over 11 years, beginning my journey as a volunteer at the Enza Park. After being honored as the center's first volunteer of the year, I was invited to join the Parks and Recreation team officially. I am deeply grateful for the Calabasas Senior Center. It truly is the hub for the 50-plus generation. As I approach my 82nd birthday, the Calabasas Senior Center continues to provide me with a vital space to remain creative and put my talents to work. My greatest joy is helping others by raising funds to create special events and programs for our participants' enjoyment. I share this recognition with my dedicated colleagues and the incredible volunteers who work alongside me to make every program a resounding success, and thank you all.
Thank you, Rick. And I think some of my colleagues would like to say something before we come down and take a picture. So we'll start with Alicia.
I just
and go
wanted to
across.
say congratulations on this well-deserved honor. What you've brought to the Senior Center and all of the events is really amazing. Every time I walk into an event, I mean, they're all sold out, all have standing room only, and people are just so happy. I was at the bingo event last week, and just the joy that everyone experiences because of the work that you're doing is something really special, and just want to say congratulations on a well-deserved honor.
Rick, I'll jump in here and say a couple words too. When I first got on City Council and I went to my first Senior Center event, I really thought you ran the joint. Was surprised to find that you were just a volunteer. I remember talking to you that very first day about all of the sponsorships and stuff that you were already chasing and how much work you were putting into that. And I just have to point out for the public the irony of it. We have a City Council agenda, and for each agenda item, we're legally required to put in the fiscal impact. And this one here says there is no fiscal impact associated with this report, but I beg to differ. You brought in so much money for our programs, and that makes them so much more valuable, so we really appreciate that.
Ed?
Rick, it's been a while since you walked through the door at the Senior Center, and David and I served on the task force that built the Senior Center. And it was quite a project, from the design aspect, funding aspect, building. Finally, it came to fruition, and the first week we were in business, the front door got broke. The front door wasn't an automatic door, it was a push door, and I happened to be in the lobby, and there was a big tumult going on because they had trouble getting in the door, and who's going to hold it, and who do you think came through the door? It was you. I met you the day you walked into the building, not knowing that all these years later we'd be in different roles, but really doing the same thing, helping the city, helping the Senior Center, and doing what we love. So you're amazing. Couldn't ask for better luck for the city to have you choose us to work with. And thank you so much. Hope it goes on forever.
Well, I don't know all these nice things about you, Rick. Come on. No, all not even funny. Just to say, on top of everything else, you are truly amazing. Everybody knows that. When I go to any event, whatever is going on in the senior center that you're involved with, first of all, you're fully committed. You're dressed up, you're in costume, you are leading, you're the MC, you are leading whatever the event is in a very positive, happy light. And I know while we all get pleasure out of it, everyone who volunteers and goes to the senior events gets pleasure, you get great pleasure. It brings to you out of giving, and that's just your nature. You're incredible. We've been very lucky. We're still lucky to have you a lot more years, and you've passed it on. Your family, your granddaughter, granddaughters, you have an amazing legacy of giving and doing for the community, and thank you so much. And thanks for all the goodies, too.
So if the council members can come down here, we'll take a group picture.
We'll just do one. Do we want to just do one?
Yeah, let's do one of us two.
And then let's all just shift a little bit this way, a little bit to your left. That's good. All right, everyone ready? And look right here. 3, 2, 1. Perfect, thank you.
I'm shorter, so I'm going to stand here. All right, let me, here, can I do one and then Terry will do it? Okay, Terry.
Okay, so we're now moving to council announcements. David, would you like to start council announcements, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Start with upcoming events. Actually, I'm going to pass on that, and someone else will find that. March 21st is the city of Calabasas, and we haven't officially designated it till we vote on it tonight, but will become Arbor Day in Calabasas. We will celebrate at Gates Canyon Park. For anyone in the community who wants to come be involved, it's a tremendous day for families, for kids, and that's from 10 to 12. And then the only other thing I'll mention is congratulations are in order, and good luck to the Calabasas High School boys varsity soccer team that won their last match, the semifinals. They're in the finals of CIF, which has not happened in a long time. I would check with Alicia. She's the expert on that. But really wish them good luck, a tremendous accomplishment. I think they went almost undefeated, lost one match all year, one game. So good luck to them. Thank you.
Okay, Ed?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I have congratulations for David Shapiro. Very important. He has been reelected to the SCAG Regional Council District Number 44. And not only was he elected, but he was unopposed.
That's a good way to win.
And that's a lot of work. So we thank you for that very, very much. I have a couple other quickies. The city is having a wildfire protection plan that will be a virtual meeting tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. It's a very important meeting because we appreciate comments and how people feel about it. And it's part of the development of a foolproof system. So please attend and comment back if you feel so inclined. And then lastly, Calabasas Village Council has been invited to attend their HOA meeting, which is annual. And we look forward to doing that. Those are my messages.
Peter?
I'll just add that the Calabasas Library Commission has an opening in it. That position is open, and you can apply for that up until Friday, the 27th. If you're looking for more information on that, you can find it at thecityofcalabasas.com.
Alicia?
Going last, all the announcements have been taken, but I'll echo my congratulations to David, who will continue to represent our COG area well.
Okay. So next, we're going to move on to public comments. This is for items that are not on the agenda but pertinent to Calabasas city business. And any member of the public can speak for 3 minutes or less on any unagendized item. Please fill out a speaker card. I have four speaker cards. 2 of them are from item 10, which is being continued, so now they're public comment items. So I'll call you in order. Mark Levinson.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Mark Levinson, I am the immediate past chair of the Chamber of Commerce, and I live in Los Angeles. And it's a couple of very, very important things we have on the calendar. Tomorrow, the Chamber is holding its luncheon at the Country Club, and the sponsor of that is the city, and there will be great discussions, explanations, and they will be available to answer questions on the ballot measure to raise the sales tax. So it's an opportunity to interchange with ideas with the people who are sitting in front of me, the council, and other representatives of the city. So thank you very much for sponsoring and coming to that. On March 4th, the International Women's Luncheon is taking place. The Chamber is a co-sponsor of that. It's the 3rd annual event. It's a great event, time to honor women in our communities, and that is taking place at the Agora Event Center. And lastly, the Community Education Forum for March 10. Our featured speaker will be Mayor Bazagian, so thank you for that. It's an opportunity to hear him again on impact to education in the area. Thank you very much.
Okay. Next speaker is Devendra Mishra.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, my fellow residents of Calabasas. I am Devendra Mishra, someone who found Calabasas to become his home 40 years ago, far, far away from the village I was born in only 8 decades ago. Over these years, my wife and I have spent the last 57 years walking the streets of cities across the world, probably 80 countries in the world for sure. But it was the pandemic, the COVID-19 that we had, where we walked through our city and discovered the city we lived in. The world had come to a standstill, but we were walking. And we were experiencing what I had never experienced before. With a water bottle in one hand and an iPhone in the other hand, we walked through the streets. I recall the serpentine Calabasas Lake became my Walden Pond, a pond of reflection and renewal. And I could see those immigrant Canadian geese with a mirrored reflection in the water of the lake. Reminded me of those tapestries that the Mexican women weave. I recall the canopy of the ancient oaks right near my house that I'd never seen before, that were a cathedral to light and shade. I recall walking along the Mulholland Drive and there they were, the tall trees whose silhouette was cast in the setting sun. And lo behold, there is the sagebrush cantina that made sure that Old Town never got old. And as you walked across to the Leonis Adobe, I was reminded of our origin, the patches of pumpkin, where pumpkins grew beyond our imagination. And I walked across, I'll be real fast, I'll walk across to the, should I shut up? Maybe I should. Could I have a minute, please?
Well, and just wrap up. A couple
I'll just finish by
couple
saying,
sentences.
I would like to dedicate A Labor of Love, which is a book about my travel through the streets of Calabasas. And it's an honor to give it to you, Mr. Mayor, because you have chronicled Calabasas before. But this is really a dedication to all our residents of the city, because I want you to walk with me and see the city and experience it like you have never before. So thank you,
so
sir.
much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll put this in our library, and we'll.
But they were the first to get it.
Yeah.
Oh, they.
Yeah,
Barbara has the first copy, you have the second.
Oh, thank you.
it's beautiful.
I really appreciate this.
It's beautiful.
Next speaker is Joe Chilco. Christy, can we? The caution button didn't go on. Okay. Hi.
Hi, I am Joe Chilco, a longtime resident. And yes, we're pretending this is public comment on a non-agendized item. There's been no significant public outreach and education in the past few years to inform the public that the roundabout project is moving forward at Calabasas Road and Muro Road, or any program or means to teach residents how to navigate a roundabout. It will simply be built and during an emergency event will become a baptism by fire. This is an ineffective approach. I ask that the city create and implement a robust outreach and education program. The city has not conducted an assessment of the intersection when being used for emergency evacuation. It's a major concern to the residents. During the 2018 Woolsey fire, when access to the 101 freeway was closed, in neighborhoods north of the freeway off of Las Virgenes and Thousand Oaks Boulevard, residents were trapped during a major fire event that took out 9 homes in those areas. We had a repeat during the Kenneth fire, which followed the same path as the Woolsey with the same result. Traffic was gridlocked and the residents were unable to leave the area. There's a 2-lane bridge that's not being expanded and the volume of traffic will not be decreased. A roundabout, which requires courtesy during evacuation events on the only alternate route eastbound if the 101 is impacted, will not improve public safety under these conditions. The city should adopt a big picture approach to public works projects that impact public safety and traffic and transportation. I ask that the City Council discuss a process by which the departments and the applicable commissions can cooperate together to address issues of concern and then report back to the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Next card is Michael Harrison.
Good evening, Mayor Bizaji and members of the council. Michael Harrison, City of Calabasas. I'm also speaking about that roundabout project, which I think there's no need for that project other than to give city employees something to do. Extending the sidewalk from the Audi dealership to the Muro Road Bridge will serve approximately 0 pedestrians a year. A better project would be to paint the invisible crosswalks and roundabouts all over the city, like the ones just outside of the City Hall here. The city can use Measure M funds for that. Measure M funds don't come out of nowhere. They come from local sales taxes. And ad valorem funds, the other source paying for this proposed roundabout, come from Calabasas Park property taxes. The funds for this project may not be coming from the city's general fund, but taxpayers are still paying for it. It's also a bad design. Just take a look at it. The traffic on Calabasas Road will not have to slow down for the roundabout. This roundabout is a traffic hazard just like the one by my house on Parkway Calabasas. Every month we have a major crash there. Last month the crash knocked out the power. The month before, the driver's car flipped over and pushed boulders into the road. And also, after this project is built, there will be no money to maintain it or the landscaping. Do you think that Calabasas Park taxpayers alone have to pay for the maintenance through their overspent ad valorem taxes? I mean, just look at the maintenance all along Parkway Calabasas with the potholes, the patches, and the dead landscaping on the whole street. It used to be a showpiece. Now it's an embarrassment. So please put a stop to this $6.5 million budget-busting boondoggle. Thank you.
Thank you, and just to remind everybody that we will have this item come back, and there'll be additional public comment at that time, if people wish to do that. I don't have any more cards. Do you have any more cards, Christy? Okay, so no one else wishing to speak in public comment. We're going to move on to our consent calendar, which is items 5 through 11 inclusive, except item 10 has been removed. Would anyone like any item removed?
I'd like to pull item 8.
8, okay, anything else?
An update on council minutes. I've got a correction on
Okay,
number
so we'll pull
item
5 for
5.
a moment.
Okay, and I was going to say 7 and 8 maybe together, if I just had a
7
question.
and 8,
for-
and I have 11. So we'll just go one by one. Item 5, Ed.
Yeah, very simply, we have a adjournment for that at 5:25 PM. It was actually 7:25 PM.
Didn't catch that. Very good.
That was the last council meeting.
Okay, thank you, Ed. So we'll make that correction when we pass the, will be included in the motion. Item 7 is you, David?
I think it was Peter before me.
Oh,
but-
Peter before? He was 8.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, mine is 7 and 8, and it's together. I was going to address the Scott Trujillo, our assistant city manager, to ask him to explain, if he could, what we've received and read in this packet, so the public could understand as well.
Absolutely. So we are honored this evening to move on with our communications RFP. So after an extensive search, we had 26 firms submit a proposal for this action, and we ended up going with 2 firms, RMG primarily for the primary communications, along with Trepepe Smith to do the AV component recording of the city council and the planning commission meetings. So, and with those 2 actions, if approved this evening, it would net about $614,000 in annual savings moving forward for the city.
Thanks very much.
Any other questions on that item? Okay, we'll move on to 8, which is both Peter and David. Peter, what did you wish to speak about?
Yeah, I just want to note that our RMG is actually here in our audience this evening. We have Rachel Dickman and Lizelle DeGrave, who I had the pleasure of meeting earlier. And I don't think we should pass this on consent without giving them the opportunity to come up and introduce themselves.
David, do you have anything else before they come up?
No, thank you. That would be great.
Okay, why don't you come up? Introduce yourselves.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Rachel Dickman. I'm the CEO of RMG Communications, and I'm joined by my partner, Lizelle DeGrave. And we are very excited to be here and partner with the community that values thoughtful and transparent communication. Our team looks forward to closely working with staff to ensure elevated communications for your residents.
Yes, and we'd like to thank you for having confidence in our firm, and we really look forward to working with the city staff as well as you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. And I pulled item 11. Michael, I had a couple questions for you. This ordinance is about 15 years old, and as I recall, it came to the council directly. Is that correct? Or do you know offhand? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
I guess, what do you mean directly?
Like it wasn't vetted by a commission or anything?
No, it was not.
You know, we haven't really looked at it and changed it or done anything with it in 15 years. Is someone looking at this to see if we need to revise it or there needs to be any changes? Because Usually when that amount of time has passed, I would think that we just take another look at it. I notice we're still getting violations. That's one of the reasons I'm asking.
Yeah, one of the reasons why this actually comes back to the council on an annual basis is because that helps us look at it and evaluate what's working and what's not working. Although it was passed back in 2009, there have been amendments that have been made to it over the years to reflect changes in time. We do keep track of changes in state law to make sure that it's still compliant with what those requirements are. And with the grants that we've gotten, we're actually trying to do more outreach to the retailers and educate them on what their obligations are. So at this point in time, we don't recommend any additional changes.
Okay. Please keep us apprised of any changes you do recommend in the future, because as far as I know, it's never really been amended.
It's been tweaked over the years. Like, for example, one thing that we did do probably about 6 or 7 years ago was we increased the amount for a violation. So if there was a violation, they actually have to pay to reinstate that. So that was a change that was made a while ago. But yeah, in the past 5 years, I don't believe there has been a change.
So is this doesn't go to a commission or anything?
No.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any questions about this? Okay, in that case, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item 10?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Kraut and Weintraub. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. We'll now move on to new business, being as we have no old business. Item number 12 is an update on the city's rental registration program for 2025. And Jacqueline Rackerby will be giving the report.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. Tonight, I'll be presenting an update on the city's rental registration program for 2025. So the city's rental registration program was adopted in 2004. It applies to property owners that rent out 4 or more residential housing units in the city. It requires owners each year to register their unit, provide annual updates by July 1st of each year, and to notify the city of any increases greater than 5%. We have 1,476 registered apartment units, 35 registered condo or individually owned units, and 210 registered mobile home spaces in the city. And the purpose of the program is tracking only, since the city of Calabasas does not have a rent control ordinance. It does not restrict increases. California, however, does have a statewide Tenant Protections Act as of 2020, which restricts rental increases statewide to 5% plus CPI or 10% maximum. However, that restriction only applies to increases on a specific tenant. It does not set limitations on new rental rates when a unit is vacated and a new tenant moves into that unit. So this is a summary of the data. As mentioned, the program tracks 1,476 apartment units, and for those units, the average rent in 2024 was $3,052 a month. The average rent for 2025 increased to $3,133 a month. This represents an increase of about $81 or 2.64%. On the lower end of the range is Malibu Canyon Apartments with an average increase of 0.41%, and on the higher end of the range is Horizons with an average increase of 5.64%. This table has information with our affordable housing rental rates. We have 3 affordable properties in the city: Canyon Creek, Avanti, and Paxton. For Avanti and Paxton, both of those communities are designated as very low income. Per the current income limits that are established by HCD, the maximum rental rate for a 1-bedroom very low income unit is $1,364 a month. The maximum for a 2-bedroom unit is $1,533 a month. So the overall average for those 3 communities is $1,289 a month. The USC Kasdan Forecast 2025 Multifamily Report, which is included in your packets as Attachment A, states that average multifamily rents throughout LA County rose to about $2,336 in 2025 countywide, with the average rent for the coastal communities region, which is where Calabasas is located, being $3,221 a month. This is an overall average. It doesn't account for unit size or number of bedrooms in the unit. So by comparison, the average rent for Calabasas specifically in 2025 was $3,133 a month, as the average, with $2,908 a month being the median rent. Furthermore, the Consumer Price Index, as reported by the U.S. Department of Labor, states that the cost of rent in LA County increased by 3.7% from July 2024 to July 2025. Therefore, the rent increases seen in Calabasas are consistent with CPI and with the average reported rents for the region. The city does have 2 additional housing programs. First is our rental assistance program, which has a current monthly assistance amount of $303 a month. We have 50 participants maximum in the program, 42 being at the Calabasas Village Mobile Home Estates and 8 at large in the rest of the city. And eligibility for that program is either senior citizens or those on permanent disability that also earn less than 80% of the LA County area median income. For context, for a household of 1, 80% of the LA County area median income is currently $84,850. For a 2-person household, the limit would be $96,950. So that's the criteria that a participant would need to meet in order to be eligible for a rental assistance program. Lastly, we do have our CDBG residential rehabilitation program, which helps about 2 to 3 households at a time make necessary repairs to their home. So to conclude, the average change in rent between the reporting periods of 2024 and 2025 for apartment rental communities in the city was an increase of 2.64%, for a total average rent in 2025 of $3,133 a month. Rental rates are consistent with LA County's average rental rates for the region and with the average CPI increase of 3.7%. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. We will turn to public comment. We have 1 card. If you want to comment on this, please fill out a card. The 1 card I have is from Joe Chilco.
Hi, I'm Joe Chilco, and I'm a Calabasas resident. This is going to be short, and I'm not quite sure it's on topic. But I have noticed in my neighborhood, which is Deer Springs, we have a lot of people that are renting out every room in their house. So I'm not quite sure where that falls in this in terms of, oh, if you're renting out more than so many units. I don't know whether you take a look at such things or whether you're tracking. Certainly from a affordable housing standpoint, I can see why people are taking this approach, but I'm not quite sure that the houses were built to accommodate that kind of rental situation, and I can assure you that the parking is a nightmare. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe, and no more public comment, so I will turn to our city attorney and ask her, because I don't know the answer to this exactly. So I'm assuming that when we say if you own more than 4 properties as rental units, they're required to register, but a house where individual rooms are rented out is counted as 1, correct?
Yes, that's typically correct. And
Okay,
Michael Klein, you may have a little bit more information with respect to the definition, but that's how we currently interpret it.
Okay, so do you, in your experience, do some cities have a supplemental rule to that saying we're counting if you multiple, if you're using your house basically as an apartment building, do you see ordinances like that where they include an additional count like that?
I haven't seen that specifically, but I'll ask around with respect to surveying what cities do. Usually it is single-family home or housing unit oriented rather than room oriented.
And what if it's a house that's been converted to like I don't know how many of these we have, to there's 2 entrances to the house. What if it's being treated like a duplex or something?
If it is being treated like a duplex, that would count as an individual housing unit, as opposed to a single room occupancy isn't typically an independent living dwelling unit. So that's the distinction that's been difficult to regulate.
Yes, of course. Understood. Okay, Ed, why don't you start?
Thank you, Mayor. Jacqueline, I got a question, and I was going to ask you, this is kind of in the same sequence a little bit, but how does the city determine who's renting? So let's say I buy a house to rent, and I don't want to register it. Maybe I'll buy 5 houses. Maybe there's a lot of people out there that do that that aren't registered, so we don't really have a full handle on it. Is there a process that we do to obtain this information?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Albrecht. To my knowledge, I believe a few of the owners in the program have come to us via code enforcement complaints. So definitely as soon as we're made aware of the fact that someone is renting out more than 4 possibly homes in the city or units in the city, we reach out to them and make sure they're incorporated in our program, and we would continue to reach out to them every year. So sometimes it's a matter of they weren't aware of the fact that we had an ordinance, so as soon as we're made aware of them, we make them aware of the ordinance and we make sure they get into compliance.
Okay, so it seems like it's more of a hit or miss.
Those,
if it comes in.
to my knowledge, there's none that we know of right now that are not part of the program. The ones that came to us or that we are made aware of via a complaint, we've gotten a hold of them every year, and they're in the program now.
Okay, is there a service of some kind that other cities use to obtain this information?
Not to my knowledge.
The one thing that we can use is we have a GIS system. So as Jacqueline mentioned, if we get a complaint, we can look up if that owner owns other properties throughout the city. And then from there, we can verify if they need to be registered with the city. But it's not automated, right? We just use that to verify.
Okay, thank you.
Peter?
No questions.
Alicia?
No questions, a very good report, thank you.
David?
Just one quick question following up on Ed's discussion. How can we or do we track, let's say, multiple ADUs on properties throughout the city for rental, which I know occurs?
It hasn't come up so far that one person owns more than 4. Well, in order to own the ADU, they'd have to own the main house too, since they can't be owned separately. So it has not come up yet that one person owns 4 properties with ADUs that they rent out. But if that did come to our attention, they would certainly be incorporated into the program as well.
Okay, and the only other comment, excellent report, and it's great to see at least we're in the realm of where we should be with the numbers, the percentages, people, entities are complying with what we are after. So great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the report. I have a few questions here. So this is another thing that's been around a while. Do we look periodically and see whether we can incorporate recommendations for changing it or making it more effective? Or do you do that just generally with your reports?
Yes, we don't have any recommendations for changing the program at this time. I would say if we were seeing consistently every year that the city was not on par with what the rental rates for the region are, then we might want to look at changing the program. If we were seeing instances where we couldn't guarantee compliance with people, we might want to look at changing the program or our approach, but it's been pretty consistent year over year.
Okay, because I was looking at these rates, and I remember the last report we got, Avalon Bay had been like 25% increase, and I was very alarmed by that. So that went down. Was there a reason it went down?
I think in some years, the numbers that they have reported to us, because we try to get them reporting to us July, August of every year, but sometimes they report to us like 11 months apart or 13 months apart, if that makes sense. So one year, the increase that we might see is slightly more than the previous year, if that makes sense. So last year, I believe we saw a greater increase. And in years past, they have also mentioned to us when there's turnover in the units, they try to remodel, renovate, increase the rent, and then when a new tenant comes in, it's at a higher rental rate.
Yeah, I heard that excuse from them before. Yes, that was
which is
quite
what
an
they
excuse.
had told us last year. This year, because they were pretty consistent, I think they were around 5%.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything different that they gave to us this year than any of the other communities.
The other, I just have a couple comments. For years, I've been saying that the state legislature should not put expiration dates on these things, because what happens is we think, oh, 30 years from now, 55 years from now, whatever, we don't have to worry about it. Well, you know, time passes and we get stuck with these units expiring and families basically kicked out of their homes with nowhere to go, and they have to move out of the area, which is very unfortunate. I would hope that in the future, as developments come forward, and I don't know how many more there are going to be, that we would find alternate ways to have that. I know we can negotiate out of that. We have to give them something, but it'd be nice to concentrate more on the affordability. Also, my comment on the state legislature is they very often ignore in their housing bills affordable housing. They just don't provide for it very much. And it's just a shame, really, because people are getting priced out of their homes. So do you have anything else to add based on the comments that we've made here?
Not necessarily. Staff isn't recommending any changes to the program at this time, but we're welcome to feedback if you have suggestions for next year.
Well, the next time you're in the legislature, let me tell them what I said.
I will.
All right. This is a receive and file, so no action need be taken. So we'll move on to the next item. Item number 13, potential updates to the Old Town Calabasas zoning district standards.
Good evening, members of the City Council. This item tonight is to discuss the Old Town Calabasas zoning district. And to just jump into what this is about from a background standpoint, the Economic Development Subcommittee, which was sunsetted last year, used to meet regularly and discuss issues regarding the economic environment throughout the city of Calabasas. One of the issues that was raised, and at that time, by the way, the Economic Development Subcommittee was made up of Councilmember Weintraub and Councilmember Albrecht. And one of the issues that was raised at those meetings was a concern over the number of vacancies in Old Town Calabasas. And at that time, say prior to 2024, there were several storefronts that were vacant and had been vacant for a number of years. Some of those were close to Peddler's Fork. What's now Yumi Sushi had closed. The Six was there, and they closed their doors, and it took several years for Yumi Sushi to come in. And what was the Mulholland was also closed for many years. It took a while to finally open up. Of course, the Mulholland is now closed, and that's becoming a new restaurant, but it's currently under construction. So with those concerns, the Economic Development Subcommittee asked staff to look into what are some of the causes of these vacancies, what can the city do to assist that area and prevent those vacancies. So after that issue was raised, staff issued a memo in March of 2024 outlining some of the issues that we believe are contributing to the causes of vacancies. Of course, commercial real estate's very complex, so you can't contribute all of the vacancies to the city's policies and programs, but we could certainly look at what we have and whether or not that's creating any hurdles for tenants coming in. And with that memo, staff identified a few issues, such as conditional use permits and also parking in Old Town, and I'll get into both of those shortly. After that memo was issued, at a council meeting in April 2024, Councilmember Weintraub and Councilmember Albrecht requested that this item be placed on a future agenda list. And then shortly after that, the City Council went into its strategic priorities, and this was placed in Group D. So it's been a while, it's been on the shelves, but that's why it has taken a few years for it to come before the council. So with that, what is Old Town? For those that are watching this and are not entirely familiar with the city of Calabasas, Old Town is a commercial corridor, commercial area along the northeastern boundary of the city of Calabasas. It is, in my opinion, the most pedestrian-friendly area of the city. It has a very specific streetscape, street design. It is a vibrant commercial area. It's made up of office buildings, retail stores, restaurants, and I'll go into that a little bit more. In addition to that, Old Town has some of the oldest structures in the city. And so as part of an overall planning process, the design theme of Old Town is kind of this Old West character. So it has both that unique design theme and a pretty vibrant overall environment. So generally speaking, looking at this map, Old Town extends along Calabasas Road from El Cannon, and this red line represents the city border on the east side. Over here is the motion picture home. The freeway on-ramp to the 101 is just up here, past the screen. This red line, again, represents the northern boundary of the city border, which then, sorry, I'm pointing on the wrong screen. So this red line represents the eastern boundary of the city. This line represents the northern boundary, and it runs along Calabasas Road, and then it zigs up to the 101 freeway. So generally speaking, Old Town is from El Cannon all the way down to Park Granada on Calabasas Road. And as you can see from this map, there are areas of what is considered Old Town that are actually outside of the city boundaries, and they're located in LA City. That includes Sagebrush Cantina, the Leonis Adobe, and the city's park and ride lot, which we own. But technically, Old Town is actually reflected in this blue shaded area. And that blue shaded area represents the Old Town Calabasas zoning district. It's a specific commercial district that is, or it's a commercial zoning district that is specific to this one and only area within the city. So other commercial areas throughout the city, we have commercial mixed use zones, we have commercial retail zones. Those could be spread out in different parts of the city. But the Old Town Calabasas zoning district is only located right here. The zoning district itself encompasses only about 3.5 acres. And what you have within that zoning district is you've got the Anza Hotel here on the north, you have the Calabasas Square right here. Across the street from that, of course, is the courtyard, and then the commons on this side of Park Granada. Further east along Old Town, you have office buildings. As you keep going further east, you get into more of the retail component, which includes, which was the Mulholland, will soon be John and Binny's. You have a laundromat, you have Yumi Sushi, Peddler's Fork, a couple of retail stores, another restaurant over here. Of course, the farmers market takes place on Saturday in Old Town as well, which brings a lot of pedestrian activity. And then Canyon Creek, which is a senior affordable housing project, is located here along El Cannon, also in the Old Town zoning district. So as you can see, in general, the Old Town Calabasas zoning district is actually pretty varied. There's a lot of different uses, existing uses in that zoning district. So how was Old Town Calabasas created? Well, it was ultimately created by the Old Town Calabasas Master Plan and Design Guidelines. These guidelines were adopted by the City Council on March 16, 1994. And ultimately, the purpose of the master plan and the design guidelines was to create and establish the historic and cultural heart of Calabasas. And this master plan and design guidelines includes a lot of guidelines with regards to public space, so the street design, private property, so again, that kind of Old West theme, signage, and landscaping. And that has continued to be in use, so our zoning code references back to the Old Town Master Plan and Design Guidelines, and that is used for any new project that moves forward within Old Town. And we also will refer projects such as signage and additions or anything that's new in Old Town to the Historic Preservation Commission, and they'll weigh in on the proposed aesthetics and compliance with the Master Plan Design Guidelines. So the Old Town Calabasas zoning district, which is actually represented in our municipal code by the CT nomenclature, was ultimately crafted, again, like I said, off of those master plan design guidelines. However, as staff looked into, again, the concerns that were raised regarding vacancies, one of the first areas we looked at is our zoning code and the land use table. And the way that the Calabasas Municipal Code land use table works is it identifies all of the zones within the city and then 100+ different potential land uses, anything from residential to industrial. And each land use category corresponds to a column representing the zone, and based on what type of letter is in that zone, that use is either a permitted use, conditionally permitted use, or simply not allowed. So this table is actually just a very reduced version of our land use table. I picked out a handful of different uses. It doesn't represent the entire land use table, it's just for demonstration purposes only. But if we take a look at these various land uses, from alcoholic beverage sales to restaurants, arcade, bowling alley, convenience store, et cetera, if you look at the commercial retail zoning district, this is what would correspond with what's allowed or not allowed. And as you can see, all of these uses are in some way allowed within the CR zoning district. However, for example, alcoholic beverage sales requires a conditional use permit. A restaurant is permitted, so that would only require a zoning clearance if there was a new use coming in. Same thing with office, retail, bakery, deli, convenience store. These are all permitted uses in the commercial retail zoning district. So what that means is that if a tenant space were to become vacant, let's say in one of the commercial retail zones off of Las Virgenes Road or Agora Road, like at the Summit Shopping Center, for example, then, and let's say a retail space left and a bakery wanted to come in, it's a permitted use, it's a zoning clearance application. That takes usually less than 30 days for the planning department to process, oftentimes far less than that. However, if the same scenario were to happen in the Old Town zoning district, because that land use requires a conditional use permit, it's not a simple zoning clearance. That applicant or prospective tenant would have to go through a conditional use permit process, which is a public hearing process, requires a review by our development review committee, then going to a public hearing with the planning commission. The cost for a conditional use permit is thousands of dollars more than a zoning clearance, and the time it takes to process a zoning clearance is at a minimum three to 4 months, just because the extra layers of requirements that an application has to go through in order to be ready for a public hearing process. And then in addition to that, if there's a use on this table that doesn't have a letter, so for example, arcade, bowling alley, pool and billiards room, or convenience store, that use is just simply not allowed in Old Town. So any prospective tenant that comes in seeking to open up any one of those would simply be told that it's not permitted in that zoning district. Again, though, if there is a use that's allowed, pretty much every use that is allowed in Old Town requires that conditional use permit. And so that, from experience, often deters prospective tenants, because it's just simply more time and money that they have to spend on something where they don't even have occupancy to that unit yet. I mean, if you think about it, that means they're probably going to have to rent it for 3 to 4 months and just leave it vacant during that time period. So the other issue that was discovered or discussed by staff is parking. As I had mentioned at the beginning, Old Town is made up of some of the oldest structures in the city, and in fact, with the exception of the Canyon Creek Senior Home Project, all of the buildings in Old Town were constructed before the city incorporated, so they predate city zoning standards. And I would say out of any other location in the city, these properties have the least amount of parking based on what's required for the current existing uses. So if you look at this aerial image, you'll see this right here, for example, is the Mulholland, or actually that's the laundromat, sorry, the Mulholland over here, Yum Sushi, and a couple of retail spaces. I mean, you could see there's barely any parking for these properties. So they have a handful of parking spaces. They're way underparked per our current zoning code, which would require a lot more parking spaces than what they currently have. What that means, and the way that our zoning code deals with non-conforming structures as it relates to parking, you can maintain that non-conforming use. So if you already have a restaurant in a building on a property that does not have adequate off-street parking, you can maintain that restaurant, no problem. You cannot expand that restaurant, and you can't make that parking situation any worse. This is our zoning code requirement across the board throughout the city. Now, if, for example, you have a retail store and that retail store goes out of business or leaves, and then a new tenants looking at taking over, and this tenant is potentially a restaurant. Because a restaurant requires more parking in our zoning code than a retail space, we would not permit that because you cannot make the parking circumstances worse based on new uses. And so, again, that often is a deterrent. Sometimes a prospective tenant may go down the route of having a parking study completed to see if there's some opportunity to squeeze additional parking or demonstrate that their use could offset other uses on site to have shared parking. That might work in other locations, like some of the larger shopping centers, but for the most part in Old Town, the sites are just simply too small to accommodate even relief through a parking study. So again, if you have an existing use, you can maintain that. You can change to other uses as long as they don't require any more parking than what exists there, than what that current use is per our zoning code. But you simply cannot change a use of an existing space to a new use if that new use requires more parking. And so that was another issue that was raised because obviously that can create significant constraints. And the reality is that while off-street parking is always a concern, there is a lot of on-street parking in Old Town, and there's also a lot of adjacent parking. So, for example, the office building next door, they will often, on the weekends, for example, when the office building is not occupied as much, but Old Town tends to be, from a retail standpoint, more bustling, they will charge for parking over here. The Leonis Adobe will also charge for parking there. The Sagebrush will charge for parking. So there's parking opportunities in and around Old Town, even if there's not parking specifically on a specific property. And the Mulholland, for example, probably, well, what will become John and Vitty's, would never have been able to become a restaurant if it weren't for the fact that the owner entered into an agreement with the city and sold their property for the city to develop as a park and ride. Otherwise, that restaurant or that space would have never been able to be turned into a restaurant space under our zoning standards. So again, parking, of course, is always a concern for people in general, but there are a lot of parking opportunities in and around Old Town, and because of the pedestrian nature, it's easy for people to park further away, down Calabasas Road even, and then walk into Old Town to go to their destination. So just to summarize, based off of the memo that was provided to the Economic Development Committee, as well as what was attached to the council report, as staff looked into the concerns over the vacancies, and granted the vacancy rate now in Old Town is actually pretty low because those spaces have since been filled and have been developed. And of course, taking into consideration that commercial real estate is very complicated, so it's not as if it's only the city's fault that those properties remain vacant. There could be a million other factors related to why properties are vacant. You may have uncooperative landlords. The rents may be considered too high. And in this particular case, in Old Town, you have older structures that, in order for them to be converted or taken over by something else, need significant investment and improvements. So all of those are factors as well that can contribute to properties remaining vacant. But if we want to at least look at whether or not the city itself is creating any hurdles, these were the areas that staff looked at and determined could be considered for improvement, right? So one of the opportunities is to consider aligning the allowed commercial uses within the Old Town zoning district with, let's say, either the commercial retail zone or even the commercial mixed use zone. Again, eliminating that requirement for a conditional use permit for anything that would otherwise be allowed and just make it consistent with the other commercial zones. Could even consider looking at not requiring a conditional use permit for specific uses, even if those specific uses require a conditional use permit in other zones. So for example, alcohol use historically requires a conditional use permit throughout all the commercial zones. Live music usually requires a conditional use permit throughout the different commercial zones. But if there's a desire to bring more vibrancy to that area of the city, then eliminating the conditional use permit for alcohol use and eliminating a conditional use permit for live music could kind of open that opportunity up. You could still create a standard that has limitations, like live music can only take place inside a building from the hours of 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. So you can still create standards that are unique to it, but you can think of, there's an opportunity to remove the procedural process that tends to hold up potential new uses. And then finally, the council could consider relaxing the parking standards in Old Town. And staff's recommendation for this would be to only relax that standard for an existing building, not for new structures, not for additions, but if you have an existing space, we could craft the language in the municipal code that specifies that within Old Town, no additional parking standard needs to apply as long as the use is allowed and it's taking over an existing space, an existing structure, not adding on. And for what it's worth, in the Old Town Master Plan and Design Guidelines, it even recognizes that parking constraints can be a problem for Old Town and that the city should consider flexibility within Old Town versus other areas of the city. So with that, staff's recommendation is that the council provide further direction to staff on potential updates to the Old Town Calabasas zoning district, keeping in mind that any of those changes would require amendments to Title 17 of the municipal code. That would also require going to Planning Commission and then coming back forward to City Council for final review and approval. And it would trigger CEQA, so we would have to consider budgeting money for CEQA review because it would make some significant changes to a zoning district. With that, I'm available for questions.
Okay, so I have one speaker card from Ryan Embry. Sorry? I can't hear you. Oh, it's item 14. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you handed in for this item. Thank you. I have no speaker cards, so Peter, you will start.
Thank you for that report, Michael. Just a couple of questions, if I could. Our conditional use permits, can you give us some examples of the kind of things that they would be useful for in I don't want to say restricting new uses, but in monitoring new users and making sure they conform with what we're looking for in Old Town?
So by nature, the intention of a conditional use permit is that it's a discretionary action, and that allows the Planning Commission, the city, and in this case, the Planning Commission, to analyze whether or not a proposed use could have a impact on the surrounding area, and then what kind of conditions should be attached to that project or that use in order to mitigate those impacts. That's typically the primary purpose of a conditional use permit. Recently, I can tell you that one of the stores that just recently opened up, if you're not familiar with it, it's called the Library down in Old Town Calabasas. They had to go through a conditional use permit process, went to the Planning Commission, their conditional use permit was approved. There's really nothing that generally comes out of those procedures, the conditional use permit process, that seems to be too significant. So it didn't appear that there were any significant conditions attached to this or to that particular use. We kind of just have pretty boilerplate conditions for any alcohol-related CUP that they have to obtain and maintain their ABC license, which could be a standard requirement in a zoning clearance.
Okay. And I was imagining that our conditional use permit, if we had a whole line of tenants trying to get into Old Town, we would be able to pick and choose from them, but if we're having the opposite problem, I'm not sure it's being helpful to us. You mentioned the parking. First question on that regard is, what is the lot between the Anza and our park and ride that's outside of this district?
Thank you for pointing that out. If I can go back to the map. You're talking about this
Yes.
piece right there. So that is a vacant parcel. It's actually in the commercial mixed-use zoning district, and it was identified in our housing element as a housing site. So it's technically outside of the Old Town Calabasas zoning designation. And it is in the city, and then the city's, my screen just went blank. The city-owned parking lot is right to the, just to the east of that.
And the little blue piece in between?
That's the pump house for the water district.
Okay. And so as a pump house for the water district, we don't really have control over that
No.
anyways.
There's nothing, I could not imagine anything happening there.
And if we would allow a modern mixed-use project in between the two, or whatever we get with the housing laws of the state of California, it's hard to imagine that we would want to enforce Old Town standards on the Anza Hotel. So I think if we do start opening this can of worms, I think we should probably take a little closer look at that area as well and incorporate that thought process into it.
If you don't mind, I'd actually maybe even go a step further if you wanted to and take a look at Calabasas Square, which really does not fit with the Old Town character.
The Old Town Remax building?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And that one, and the Remax building next to it.
Certainly I think Old Town could be reimagined at this point, at some point, but I would love to keep the overall character of the area that's to the east of there. My only concern with the parking, you mentioned shared parking agreements. Do we get complaints from the adjacent landlords and tenants that overflow parking is in their spaces without a shared parking agreement?
I don't have any. The only complaints that I have heard of have been on El Cannon mostly, and that's related to farmers market parking and trucks loading and unloading. I haven't received any direct complaints for other operations.
Okay, I know that there's a parking enforcement going on in the shopping center where Rosti is, especially during the farmers markets.
Yes, that I am aware of that. So their management has asked the security to not allow people to park there during farmers market. But again, that kind of gets back down to the farmers market problem, not so much the tenants that are in Old Town.
I'm just imagining that if we open up the parking, and let's say we allow the retail spaces when they change tenancy to go to restaurant, we could end up with a Friday night, Saturday night problem, the same as we have during the farmers market. And in relaxing the requirements for these owners, we're going to be putting that burden of parking on the adjacent owners that might be more heavily parked. So that would be my concern, but I'll wait and hear the comments from the rest of my fellow council members.
I will say, ironically, because I have spoken to a handful of tenants at the courtyard, they like farmers market people parking there because then they're walking through the shopping center. It's just the management company that has had problems with that.
Alicia?
Thank you for bringing this forward. Just a little bit of history. When Ed and I were part of the Economic Development Subcommittee and would meet with Michael, and he would give us updates on some of the tenants that were, or businesses that were interested in Old Town, there was, at that time, there were a lot of reasons why these leases weren't being signed. And a lot of it came, in my opinion, came down to aspects of our zoning code. One in particular I remember was a restaurant that was looking at the site that is currently Yumi Sushi and wanted to have like live music inside. There'd be no impact to anything on the outside, and live music's not allowed in that area. Is it a conditional use permit or not permitted?
Not permitted.
Not permitted at all. So there's There would be no impact to the neighbors. It would be like between a door behind a door in a restaurant. And, you know, this is the area where we're trying to encourage business. And so I'm all in favor of aligning the allowed commercial uses in this zone with the CR zone. And I also think that we should look at allowing specific uses without the need for a CUP, such as live music, with conditions. I think there should be conditions for everything. And then I think the parking, if we discuss that further, I would want to also include something about valet parking possibly on weekends and different conditions. I think there's a way to make this work, to make it more attractive for the right businesses, and also not make it chaos. But I think there's definitely, we should look to align this.
Okay, David?
Thank you for bringing this forward, an excellent report, and thanks to the former committee. A lot of questions from me, or comments and questions, or just questions,
No,
James?
everything.
Okay. I moved my office, my legal office, here in early '94, so it was about a month and a half before council went ahead and implemented the Old Town Master Plan, as it was called, and I took part in a lot of meetings in the community and business community then, and very, very different. Old Town was very different than it is now. So, matter of fact, there was no commons then, if I'm correct, so traffic was much lighter. I like the idea of new businesses coming in, vibrancy, exciting opportunities to make another part of the city something where all the community can go and enjoy. Parking, traffic become huge issues. The recommendations for the zoning, I understand. My question on that would be, if we do the changes in the zoning for Old Town, do we have to allow that elsewhere in the city if we are asked by another development, let's say?
What we are recommending is that we align it with either the commercial retail or possibly the commercial mixed use. So it's actually not providing any benefit that doesn't already exist with the other commercial zones, because Old Town is already the most restrictive zoning district. There is a commercial limited zone that is different, but given where those are located and their unique circumstances, I wouldn't see that conflicting with this change.
Okay, so if some other center in the community wanted the same considerations that we're talking about, if we made changes here, they would be entitled to that same, it would be across the city.
For example, the Courtyard, the Commons, Gelson's, the Summit, the Las Virgenes Shopping Center, they all enjoy the less restrictive zoning requirements right now. So new retail, new restaurants, most new uses are permitted uses. They don't have to go through a conditional use permit process.
And I'm fully supportive of the concept and finding a way to find less restriction, increase business, to have additional parking if possible, and not have a logjam. I know anytime there's and probably somebody here would have said that earlier if they had, anytime there's an incident on the 101, our Calabasas Road becomes a congested, I don't want to say nightmare, but pretty close to it. So if we put in, which is happening now, there's some very popular, good restaurants, just to name a couple, that are coming in. That's going to bring a lot of people, which is wonderful. The one thing we did years ago to help revitalize Old Town as a council and as a city, and also to help with public transit, was to have the park and ride lot that we developed in Old Town, which the goal for Old Town at that time was so people could literally park and walk across for a couple hours and go to restaurants, shops, whatever it might be. Is there a way, if we're looking at this, that we could also look at, and I know the funding may be an issue, but look at restricting the parking, except park and ride individuals, for those lots, to either restrict them to non-employee parking, which was an agreement, but not necessarily something we have enforced through the years, and only allow it for 2 to 3 hours at a time, so you can help alleviate some of the parking issues and not allow employees for all these businesses, including in the building that you had up there earlier to park there?
Those are certainly options. Those would be more policy-driven choices by the council, not a zoning code issue. So our zoning code doesn't establish parking time limitations, but it's certainly something that can be looked at in addition to any potential zoning code change.
Right. How many spots are there now in the lot? I used to know this by heart.
In the park and ride lot?
Yes. Approximately. How about that? Curtis? Putting him to sleep back there.
How many parking spaces total?
Okay. All right. So a portion of that, assuming people aren't using it for public transit, which is the intended goal and part of the funding, then those maybe could put, maybe if we thought about it and needed it, it could be a 2 to 3 hour limit to go to the shops, restaurants, and enjoy.
Yeah, and of course, whenever you have the 2 to 3 hour parking limit, then there's the enforcement component.
Right.
One option, and again, it's more policy related, not so much zoning code, but we put these parking sensors out here along Civic Center.
Right.
We could certainly easily deploy parking sensors over there, and then those could be monitored regularly from a remote standpoint.
Okay. All right. That's just a thought thinking ahead. Again, I think apparently Yumi is doing very well. I know Murray Cleaners is busy, Peddler's Fort, there's a lot there. Sagebrush Cantina, of course, already has live music. So touching on that quickly, I know there were other businesses that requested live music inside and they were not allowed to, or they were allowed to at some point with no electrification, no amplification of any kind, even inside, and then that got shut off as well. So if we allow for something like that in Old Town, likewise, we would be allowing it elsewhere in the city, correct?
You don't have to. Again, we can create standards that are specific to Old Town.
Okay. I'll just speak for myself then, and that's, if we're going to do that, I wouldn't want to restrict other areas to something different that might affect business or provide an opportunity for another part of the city to have the same type of depending on what it is. I'd be uncomfortable. That's me. So obviously, maybe I'm alone in that.
Yeah, and to your point earlier, you did ask about would this create an advantage that other commercial areas don't have. Yes, if we were to look at allowing specific uses in Old Town without a conditional use permit, then the other areas of the city, like the Commons and Gelson's and the Summit, those uses would still require a conditional use permit, like live music, for example. But we could make those an allowed use there too. I mean, the council has the flexibility to change the zoning code however it wants.
Understood. Well, I think this is great. Thank you for bringing it. And this would go, if I read it correctly, to planning, and would traffic and transportation weigh in as well?
Traffic and transportation does not usually weigh in on parking-related matters, so this would not go to traffic.
Okay. Again, my concern, I'll say it out loud, is again, as great as it is, and I support this, support the idea of revitalizing, increasing the opportunities and wonderful places for the community to go to, that we're wary of the traffic congestion that may occur as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Before I turn to Ed, I had thought, Michael, and you didn't mention this, but I had thought the manner in which we purchased that park and ride and the stated purposes when we got grant money would prevent us from putting any hour limitation on it, because the whole purpose of it was represented as using the transit systems, which are going to take people, if people go to work somewhere else in the valley, they're not going to be back in 2 or 3 hours. So I don't know how we could
You're right.
possibly do that.
That could be, although, I mean, we would have to look at the terms of the grant. I mean, there's the possibility that after hours, right? So that should really only be during work hours, but on the weekends, maybe there's an opportunity to restrict
I don't know,
parking.
but before you would go down that path, please look at that, because I remember there being significant restrictions on our ability to
Yeah,
regulate.
that's a good point.
Ed?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, council members, for all your questions and answers. This is really something when Alicia and I first thought about this and looked at it, this is a major remedial upgrade that we needed to do, because it's pretty obvious for those of us that lived in the city for quite a long time that the turnover rate in that Old Town area was getting overwhelming. And I think the carrying charges for a business owner who has to wait for a conditional use permit and the cost with the developers that own the property becomes pretty prohibitive for them to recover their investment, much less make some money on top of it. So it runs out of steam after a while. And I wouldn't blame any of them for putting their hands up in the air and saying, you know, we can do this somewhere else. So I think we need to take a good look at all of the things that we've mentioned and see what we can do to improve what we hope will become again a special location that's unique. It's unique with Leona's Adobe across the street and the image of the Old Town. And in fact, they are old because the buildings haven't been remodeled or meet to the certain code. But it really started with the parking. You know, you can't have a business, no matter how quickly they open up, even if it's a pop-up business, unless people can come and stay and come again, be happy with what they have, recurring business. So all of these, certainly I would be in support of marrying up all of the codes together as one conditional use. That's the beginning. It's a tricky one. It's a tricky one to find the right people. It's a tricky one if you really want to look at the whole picture, the whole area there, from Park Renata all the way to the freeway exit or entrance. And I'd like to see us do that at some point and make some progress little by little. But I think the parking, changing the code is a good beginning, and having further discussions on how we can approach long-term significance in marketing eventually that area. It's hard to market if you can't park and bring people in. It could even be, you know, we thought about and we talked about a bus, have a city shuttle. That would be a great idea, but I don't know how many people would want to do that, park at a distance and then take a shuttle. Maybe we can't reinvent it. I'm not sure. If we have maybe parking agreements with Leona's Adobe, with Sagebrush, I mean, they use their parking lot. It's busy at night, so I'm not sure what the availability or the occupancy rate is. So if you take a look at the occupancy rate of all the parking that's in the area, how much can we absorb with businesses? What's left? So I think it's more factual than just the permits. It's a higher level of thinking on this. Maybe we have to leave it alone, and it will be what it's going to be on a smaller level. I'm not sure, but I think we are hoping that it could reach and blossom to be a lot more than we have right now. It's an interesting property. It's special, unique, and historical, and we should take advantage of that. So those are my thoughts.
My thoughts are probably in the minority, but I'm not in favor of most of these changes. Some I would entertain, but frankly, looking back 50 years ago, my earliest remembrances of Old Town, it's not improved at all. It's gone down. The quality of services there in terms of just the streets, it's not really our fault. There's been a lot of changes that have been outside the control of the city, but it's impossible to use Calabasas Road at most times of the day. When you say relaxing parking standards, I don't know exactly what that means, because parking is so difficult there as it is. I would not want to make it. I would not want to make it worse. Another example would be, the things such as alcohol use. I'm not that concerned because maybe we do change that, but things like live music. Once we made the decision to put a senior apartment building there, which is right there on a 9/10 of an acre, it's just very, very compact and crowded. I don't see how we could have music uses in some of those places where even if the doors are closed, it's just going to drift out there. And we already get complaints. They can hear the music from Sagebrush Cantina, even when it's inside. So imagine when it's across the street closer to them, and that was a choice we made. We made a choice to build the building there, or to have the building approved there, and I think that we should have a commitment to not making it worse for those residents. As far as other things, you know, aesthetically, unfortunately, Old Town's lost a lot of its character. Again, not through entirely our fault. I mean, when most cities you talk about an Old Town, it's a district. It's a nice district. In ours, there's no parking. You can't drive your car through it, and it's less than a block in some places. I mean, it really is just a shell of what an Old Town district should be. So anything that would come forward, I would look at, I would consider it, but I'm not automatically going to support it. One other question I had, and we used to have like an Old Town, you know, committee that would look at these things before they even came here, and they were just an advisory committee. I can't even remember what it was called. It had some name.
It was the Old Town Coalition, and that was dissolved, and those duties were transferred to the Historic Preservation Commission.
Okay, so is someone, do we, like, I see none of the businesses here. So I know that we post this, it was adequately posted and all that, but did anyone tell them, hey, this subject matter specific to you is coming?
Because this is just a discussion item, this was not advertised, or we did not reach out to any of those owners. We've had conversations with a couple of the landlords in the past, actually back in 2024 when this issue came up, and these were some of the points that they raised that were issues for them in getting new tenants.
So if this comes back with any proposals, and maybe before it comes back, because there are so few landlords and so few tenants there, I would like them specifically surveyed if the council's in agreement, because it's not that hard to do. I don't know how many there are, but it's a very finite number. And I'd hate to make this discussion, like if we were just to decide something tonight, I would vote no because none of them are here, and I don't think they were specifically told, as you said. So that's something that should be done before it comes back, at least as far as me approving anything. Did you want to say something, Peter?
I did, yes. As I said, I went first, and I wanted to hear what my fellow council members had to say, and I just want to weigh in. You might be in the minority. If you are, I'm there with you. I would be in favor of item number 1, which is aligning the CT zone with the CR zone. So I think we should continue to explore this a little deeper. The idea of getting rid of the conditional use permits, I would not be in favor of that at this point in time, although I'll keep an open mind. And then Councilmember Shapiro brought up, if we're going to do it there, we should do it everywhere. I would certainly not be in favor of that. I was thinking already of the noticing requirements when the mayor brought those up. And I would imagine that something like this, we would want to do the 500-foot of a zoning, you know, of a change. So we wouldn't just notify the landlords, we would notify the senior apartments and everything else that's within 500 feet. And if we were to start exploring all of our commercial retail zones and all of the residential units that are within 500 feet of those, we're going to have a pretty full chambers. So I think we should stick with Old Town for this discussion, is my recommendation, unless there's 3 or more that want to expand this discussion.
Well, right now, this is just Old Town.
Is it just Old Town? Again, Councilmember Shapiro brought up a good point. I think it's worthy of discussion that if we do that here, it could create a desire to do it elsewhere. So I think we need to have a very thorough vetting process of this and stick with Old Town, and then maybe if it's successful, we'll look at other parcels.
Okay. Are there any other comments from the council? Anyone have other comments? Staff, any other comments based on our comments?
I just want to make sure that we're clear as to kind of the direction that the council would like us to go.
Well, where is this going next? Planning Commission?
If directed by council, we would bring this back to Planning Commission, provide sort of the direction that we got from the council, and then have that conversation with Planning Commission.
Well, I think you should take it to Planning Commission.
We could.
With our comments.
We could technically just go ahead and draft an ordinance based off of direction tonight and bring a draft ordinance to Planning Commission, or we can go to Planning Commission as a discussion item and then work from there. But
I would have them discuss this, maybe even in a workshop kind of environment, because then they can take our comments.
yeah, and it's helpful to get the direction from council, because if 2 or 3 council members are already not on board with, let's say, items 2 and 3 on that list, then we can relay that to the Planning Commission. We can kind of take that off the goals. I mean, I'm hearing item number 1, which is aligning with the CR zone, as pretty consistent across the council.
And that in itself would be a big improvement.
That would make a
big change.
Big change, eliminating the conditional use
Right.
permit process.
But part of the problem is we don't have any of the people here who are affected. So for me to make a final determination as to what I recommend, I need to hear that.
Okay.
So maybe you have a planning commission meeting and you invite those people there.
And item number 2, I do hear what you're saying, but item number 2 sounds like that's a little bit more lukewarm, not entirely favored across the board. Item 3 may be a little bit better than lukewarm, but still needs to be vetted a little bit more, maybe by the Planning Commission, for example. The parking.
Some of the problem with that issue is that again, we don't have the stakeholders here to tell us about the parking situations individual to their businesses.
All right. So yeah, we'll bring this to Planning Commission, and we could hold either a discussion or a workshop, and we'll reach out to property owners and tenants.
And I know it's not within the city, and you normally wouldn't do it, but could you notice the Leonis Adobe, because they're such a big property owner in the area?
Yeah, actually, they own the office building in the city,
Yes.
so they'll be part
Oh,
of that
well,
conversation.
Yes, okay. Yes, they will get that too.
What about Sagebrush also, since?
They own it.
What? Oh, Leonis.
Yeah, Leonis owns the Sagebrush property as
Yeah,
well.
The office building, yeah.
I mean, as long as you're doing that, you could, as David said, you could notice the business owners, the property owners that'll go to the Sagebrush. Same
Right.
with Creekside Park, they own that too. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Next item might be a little longer.
Really?
Well, the specifics might be. We'll just take a 5-minute break.
I'm like, what? I'm like.
It's probably more important.
Yeah, that's not
Okay, we're back in session. We have item number 14. So item number 14. This is the regulating electric mobility devices, which is really another word for saying e-bikes. You've all seen the reports. We've all gotten the complaints. And so now I'm going to turn it over to our Public Works Department for the presentation.
Oh, that's on me. Okay. Drag it across over here. And hit that button. Okay. All right. Good evening, Mayor and council members. This item is about regulating electric mobility devices like e-bikes and motorized scooters. Okay, thank you. In giving the city clear, enforceable rules for where and how these can be used. Tonight, I'm bringing forward a safety ordinance that really is about managing where these devices are used and not banning them. The goal here is pretty straightforward. We want safer public spaces, fewer conflicts, and rules that are enforceable and that people are actually understand. This isn't about banning devices. It's about setting reasonable boundaries. What's really changed over the last years is how common these devices have become. They're more popular, they're more powerful, and they're creating new safety challenges that existing rules don't fully address. Many of these devices can move pretty quickly, and we're seeing a lot of younger riders using them. When you mix that with cars and pedestrians, things can get unpredictable fast, and unpredictability usually is where injuries happen. From both staff observations and concerns we've received, we're seeing these devices used in parks, on athletic fields, on sidewalks, and in mixed traffic. In some cases, we've also seen damage to turf and public facilities. These are the types of issues the ordinance is intended to address. Westlake Village adopted a similar ordinance to address the same issues. It gave law enforcement tools that they didn't previously have, especially in parks and other public areas. We're coordinating with their staff and the Sheriff's Department, and we're incorporating lessons learned so we can have a more tailored approach. It's important to know that the California Vehicle Code already governs how these devices operate on public streets. This ordinance doesn't change that. Where cities really have the authority is in parks, trails, and recreational areas, and that's the gap we're addressing. So what does the ordinance actually do? It defines the devices, limits where they can operate, addresses unsafe behavior, and allows enforcement in public parking lots. It's a targeted approach. Just as important is where the ordinance does not do. It does not change or regulate operation on the public roadways. That stays under the Vehicle Code. It does not affect ADA compliant mobility devices, and it does not apply to private property that isn't open to the public. The goal here isn't to start writing tickets, especially to kids. It's cases, in most cases, it's enforcement will start with education and parent notification. At the same time, we see repeated or clearly unsafe behavior. The city needs to be able to step in. This ordinance gives officers discretion and the tools to address those situations when education isn't enough. This ordinance relies on the city's existing enforcement framework. Most violations would be handled administratively with graduated fines consistent with other municipal code violations. Ultimately, this gives us safer parks and public spaces, fewer conflicts between users, and clearer expectations for residents, especially parents and younger riders. It also keeps us consistent with state law and with how nearby cities are addressing the same issue. So tonight, we're asking for the council to adapt the ordinance and direct staff to implement. So staff recommends that the city council adopt an ordinance regulating electric mobility devices.
Okay. I have one speaker card from Ryan Embry.
I want to thank you for addressing this growing concern. The other cities in the COG have done a joint effort to try to standardize. I believe this one came from Westlake Village, and I submitted some streamlining to the verbiage in there because it really could be better. For instance, to establish the acronym up in the definitions section and then using one reference to vehicle code or California vehicle code throughout. That's kind of a no-brainer. The other, though, is that this puts an expectation that the city will enforce if signage is placed on private property, parking lots, for instance, in shopping centers, this code. And that's a kind of an unfunded expectation. I mean, this is an expanded use and burden that would be imposed upon the city and the sheriff's department. So if this is signage based for responding to an on-call aberration event and should not be construed as some patrol function that the city will be providing for free to private properties. The other is there's reference in one of the lettered sections that says to public areas, and then it says other roads, and I think that needs a little clarification. I forget which lettered section that is. What it doesn't say, well, what it does say is that the city, in response, shall make every effort to contact the parents. Those are pretty strong burden words on the city when the city is trying to regulate the users, and now you're putting an obligation on yourself. And so I used just strike that and make the word endeavor to see if they can do it. What it doesn't do is require registration of these types of vehicles with the city, which would help in the instances of theft if that starts to become a problem. Having a city license on with a serial numbered sticker, for instance, for a very modest registration fee, I got a 10-speed bicycle back from the police department in another city once because of that. And so I know that's not a moving violation thing, but it's something to consider. Thank you.
Okay, Alicia, we'll start with you this time.
Thank you. I'm so glad to see. I've been asking for this for a really long time. This is a huge issue, a really, really big safety concern, and I don't see it getting any better. It just continues actually to get worse. It's like, it's hard to witness what's happening with these e-bikes, kids weaving in and out of traffic, doing wheelies. I mean, it's shocking to me truly that like someone hasn't been killed over this. And besides trying to keep the kids safe, people are causing a lot of damage to properties, to parks, the lake, a lot of issues. So anything that I can do, but I really implore the parents or anyone listening to not let your kids ride these bikes. Give them the legal bikes and really, really preach to them how they need to be safe, because what we're witnessing, what the sheriff's witnessing, is just a real big accident waiting to happen. I just have one quick question. I think, Jay, you addressed it a little bit, but why for a while did we think we didn't need an ordinance? Why did we think that we could rely on what was already there? Because when I brought it up, when I saw that Westlake did this, and I meant to ask you this earlier today, when I saw that Westlake did this, and I remember sharing it with staff, and they're like, oh, we don't need that, we already have it. Like, it's already.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Councilmember, I'm not sure where you heard that. That wasn't the impression we've been working under.
Right.
We
It
know Westlake.
It wasn't Public Works, so that was probably the, yeah.
Okay. Westlake was early on it, and that's good. They've had some lessons learned, as Jay mentioned. So from our standpoint, there was, I wouldn't call it a delay, but there was a little bit of a pause to see what the Westlake ordinance would look like, because pretty quick, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe they realized there was they adopted an ordinance and made some updates.
So we paused for just a little bit. They went through that exercise, and now we're here in front of you. And we paused because we share the same enforcement agency,
Right.
which is the sheriff. So we want to make sure we're giving them the best and easiest tools to work with, or most convenient, so that when they go to Westlake Village, Calabasas, or Agora Hills, they don't have to change their approach to this issue.
And my only comment is, I just really want to make sure the fees are high enough to get the message across. Thank you.
David?
Thank you, and thank you for bringing this forward. I too, like everyone here, has heard a lot about it, and seen it also. It's been a problem for some time in our city, and as Alicia said, it's time. It's absolutely time to bring this forward, move forward with this, and hopefully get some changes in the city. And it's not just our property, it's even, you go to the shopping centers and you're seeing these bikes moving in and out of people, and depending on someone's physical ability, it could lead to a very, very serious problem and some serious injuries as well, in addition to the property damage and public safety in general. So without a doubt, I support this. The biggest thing I think is, and you mentioned it, is education. It's going to be educating the students, the drivers, the riders of these bikes or other bikes, and the parents, and as to what is legal and where things can be driven in the city legally. If you can't ride these bikes legally in the city until you are 18 with a driver's license, or 16 with a driver's license and a helmet, and then even then there are rules, that has to be known. So there's no if, and, or but about it. It has to be corrected. And they're fun, and they're great, and they're easy, but these seem to be ongoing problems, even when parents get cited or kids get cited, or the bikes, as Deputy De Matteo used to literally take the bikes and have the parents come down and try and educate them. It's not giving us the solution we want. So I am fully supportive of this and all for, curbing any destructive and potentially dangerous activity in the city. So I fully support this. Thank you.
Ed?
Thank you. Well, I absolutely support this, what Councilmember Shapiro and Weintraub mentioned. Education certainly is number one. But you know what? I think when it comes to parenting, and having been one, continuing to be, I think it's important to mention to the kids that you have to resist what your friends are doing because you know it's wrong, but you may do it anyway, and that's the biggest part. I'll give you an example. Topanga Canyon and Mulholland Drive. So there's a light there. I'm making a left turn. This is about a week ago. And the cars at the light, as they make the left turn, are starting to move, but the cars behind did not. But as the cars behind did, three of them come over the curb on the sidewalk, across the front of my car, across to the dirt area on the side over there. It was very, very difficult to absorb because it was very, very close. An accident almost happened. It could have been much more serious. And the kids were just jumping because one kid did it, they all did it. And one of the biggest problems with these bikes, drivers can't see, they can't keep their eyes in the rearview mirror the whole time. And they're so low, you can't really see them. So the education component, parents have just got to be absolutely on it and have them promise and not just a one-time conversation. So Jay, I've got a couple questions for you. Certainly admire what Westlake did, and I admire what you did waiting to take the best of that update so we're more complete and also compatible with other cities. So what is it that they didn't do and they had to update?
I believe a lot of it had to do with the way that they were enforcing, where they could enforce, and where the sheriff was allowed to do it as well. So we wanted, like the Taylor approach I mentioned briefly is more about our parks and our sidewalks. They had a hard time also with how do you handle when the kids run from the police? What do you do? What are we supposed to do? And what did they do? How do we want to do something different? So as an instance.
And what's our outcome when that happens?
Well, we have to talk about that. Well, we want to handle that.
Okay, because I know this is the first reading, so
That's right.
we got time to go. So,
Yes.
you know, I made some adjectives of all the things that I thought about when this came up, and it could go on for 100. Road to sidewalk, sidewalk to road, undisciplined, unrestrained, swarms of bikes, weaving in and out, erratic behavior, and scampering about. You can't have eyes, even with cars having cameras on 360 vision, it's impossible. So the sooner we can get this and the input is complete, I'd like to see it, and I support it entirely.
Great, thank you.
Okay. I'm also very, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. I am very supportive of this. I do have a couple of questions and comments, and it might sound like I'm picking it apart, but it's only because I'd like to make sure it's as good as it could be. First of all, the red line comments of the ordinance we have here came from our public speaker, is that right? Okay. Although I understand and appreciate what these comments are, I think the language that's been proposed in our packet is correct. Would recommend that we stick with that. But it did bring to light a few things in here that really caught my attention. One is, in the event the operator of the electric mobility device is a juvenile, officers will make every effort to contact the parents. Can we actually pass a law that tells the sheriff's department what they're supposed to do? And how do we enforce the enforcement of that? And I guess maybe that's a question for our city attorney or our city manager. How would that work?
Yes, thank you. A lot of times when an officer goes out, and I'll use graffiti, for example, if a minor is caught engaging in graffiti and other illegal activities, they will cite the minor and actually, in certain events, arrest the minor, and the parent or guardian will be required to come, and then the parent gets cited as well. Under this ordinance, the enforcement and violation mechanism is defaulted on Chapter 1.16 of the code, which does allow violations of this new chapter to be either a misdemeanor or an infraction. The infractions carry $100, $200, and $500 fines. The misdemeanors are treated as any other misdemeanors are, with up to $1,000 fines. And so the sheriff's or any other enforcement officer will have the discretion to determine if it's an infraction or a misdemeanor. In the case it is a misdemeanor, what they can do is act similarly to what they do in cases of graffiti where minors are caught. A lot of times when they do confiscate the vehicle, they may require a parent to come pick up the vehicle, and that's when they inform the parent with respect to the e-bikes.
Okay, appreciate that. I think you've answered part of the question. I'm going to continue to track down that line of thought here. I've heard that the sheriff department does not want to pursue e-bikes with juveniles on the street for fear that they might get into an accident caused by the driver speeding. And so what I'm hearing from you is this would apply after they have caught the individual. It wouldn't be requiring them to pursue.
That is correct. And I don't know if someone from the sheriff's department will come and want to explain a little bit further what the policy, or if we're still working out the issues on this and how they deal with it in other jurisdictions.
Okay, and the sheriff's department did share with us that policy before, so I think we're aware of that. The language of this, I guess in the event the operator of the electric vehicle is a juvenile, they would have to capture him first to determine he's a juvenile, so that really isn't saying that they have to go pursue them. So we're going to leave that to their discretion. Okay. The general penalty that you brought up was the other question I had. Is there any way that we could make this flat out a misdemeanor and not an administrative penalty? Because I would be in favor of the $1,000 misdemeanor right off the bat.
And typically, that's why we default to the provisions of Chapter 1.16. Most of the time, they are misdemeanors unless within their discretion they choose to do it as an infraction. And so the citing officer, if we work with the sheriff's department and we indicate these are the tools that already make it a misdemeanor, please go ahead and issue the citation as a misdemeanor. I think when working together with the sheriff's department, we would be able to make that happen.
Okay. Another question I had was on the locations that we can operate the device. I see why this is before us. It's because, as I understand it, the...
Can you tell, so we can follow along?
Sure. I'm on page...
Section.
Oh, I am on section 10.24.020.
Okay.
Operation of electric mobility devices. Section A, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 Roman numerals there. Roman numeral 5 prohibits these from being operated over any equestrian trail or hiking or recreational trail. And if I could just summarize what I'm reading here in 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, it's already illegal to operate these on a public street. What we're doing is identifying the things that are not public streets that we're also making it illegal to drive on. Is that correct?
They are legal to operate on the public street. These are really
without a
just-
license.
What's that? Sorry.
I'm sorry, they're not legal on a public street without a driver's license.
Well, it actually depends. If you could go back to my presentation for a minute, there's different classifications.
Yeah, we were going back to that presentation in just a second anyways.
Yeah, okay, sure. These shows the different classifications allowed by the California Vehicle Code, and it's based on speed, and at each speed increment, whether all the way up to the e-motorcycles, which go really fast and require a license, basically, a motorcycle license. So these are all defined, and this is what's allowed in the street based on age for the kids, or all ages. But back to your point about the 10.24.020, the 5 things that we're defining here are what we just wanted to really define where they're not allowed.
Okay.
We know that a lot of our hiking trails are in the out of our city limits or part of the national forest, or what do we call it, the conservatory, and that's out of our jurisdiction. But we wanted to go in and define that in the ordinance.
It gives the sheriff a very, clear direction on where they can enforce. There's no gray areas.
And we got a sidebar from Council Member Shapiro here.
Sorry, I'm just looking at this. We're talking about trails. Looking at the bottom, a pedal bike, obviously, but class 1 and 2.
I was getting there.
Sorry, I'm going to defer back.
So, just to get to the point here, first of all, Section A, Roman numeral 5, prohibits them on equestrian trails, hiking, or recreational trails. However, most of the trails in the areas are either designated as mountain bikes or e-bikes allowed or e-bikes not allowed. So, I'm a little concerned that this might be in conflict with national parks or other trails going in and out of our city.
I see. So the concern is like if somebody's leaving the city or entering the city, and they have different rules that may apply? Depending on whether they're in the city or like in the...
For example, e-bikes are allowed in the Amundsen Ranch area, but they wouldn't be allowed in our trailhead to get there?
They would need to get off their bike and walk it in the city.
Okay.
The way this is written.
I have to me, the whole goal of this is for the kids under 16 that are riding these bikes recklessly. And to me, that's what we're trying to crack down on. It's the kids that aren't supposed to be riding them that are riding either the class 3 or the e-motorcycles all around the community.
That's correct. And to Councilmember Kraut's concern, it could get very nuanced if we started having different zones where we're adjacent to, a state park, and they allow e-bikes, and for this particular area, we're going to allow it to a certain point, I think it's easier to just draw the line at the city line
I have a
and
question.
make those folks walk the bike.
Will our ordinance help what's happening at the Calabasas Lake, owned by CPHA?
Yes, it could if they post signage that says that they're going to enforce the city's municipal code.
Just like what the Commons does. The Commons, we
So-
were able to enforce the vehicle code there because the Commons agreed and they posted those signs.
So any private park or the lake, as long, they can take
Well,
this.
the lake's not open to the public, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so that's not enforceable by the sheriff. Well, it is by the sheriff. That's the HOA covered, right? Okay, the sheriff can do it, but our city ordinance wouldn't cover that. Now, like
Well,
the
No,
mayor
'cause
said, yeah, go
that's-
ahead.
I thought the sheriff will,
They could,
how do we, I mean,
right.
how do we make it so that this ordinance would allow the sheriff to enforce at the lake?
Well, that's a
There-
question for city attorney.
It does. It's
Yeah.
item number 4, in or upon any public park, athletic field, athletic sports complex, or
It's
gymnasium.
not public.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
Pam, that's a question for you.
We're having a big issue.
Typically, if you want the sheriffs to come and enforce on private streets, as the Public Works Director stated, they would have to post signage and indicate that they are permitting the sheriffs to enforce the public laws, including the ordinances on their private right-of-ways. And presumably, they could do the same at the trails or the lake or the adjacent areas and the private sidewalks. The other issue is, to the extent that we have any code enforcement officers, they could also do the same, provided that they are post-certified to issue citations. And so we don't necessarily need to rely solely on the sheriffs if we have post-certified enforcement officers that can also cite for violations of the municipal code.
Do we need to expand Section A?
I'd like to make that recommendation if I can. First, I'd like to suggest that for item 5, Roman numeral 5, that we say over any equestrian trail or hiking or recreational trail unless posted otherwise. This would allow the ones that the National Park Service has already designated for e-bikes to continue. And then I would suggest that we add item number 6, which would be on any private property where posted.
Yeah.
But, okay, on your number 5, where would that apply? Where does the National Park Service cover
for-
within the city limits?
Well, I'm not sure who the owner of it is, but Amundsen Ranch or the,
But that's not in the city.
Not in the city.
but the trailhead is in the city.
That's not actually the end of the street and the beginning of the trailhead's outside the city. It's in Ventura County.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think there's any land that applies to what you're saying. That's the only thing. Does anyone know of any national park land that's in the city limits?
No.
No, I can't say for certain. There is up the upper end of Las Virgenes Road. There is the area where our trail enters open space that's managed by the Santa Monica Mountains, and
But it's
then
Ventura County.
yeah, and it's in Ventura County, and then at near De Anza, there's our trails enter into state lands going into Malibu Creek State Park. So I'm not sure what the signing is there on currently.
Well, I think all of that's outside the city.
I do
So-
think saying unless otherwise posted probably wouldn't detract from this ordinance or weaken it.
Well, okay, but then take out the National Park Service part.
Yeah, we didn't say national park. We just said add the words unless otherwise posted
Okay.
at the end of
That's
number
fine.
5.
Hold on. Can Pam weigh in on that? Will that weaken?
Sorry, I was writing something else. Could you repeat the question again?
I'd like to add
But I think
on
it'll
item
weaken it.
number 5, over any equestrian trail or hiking or recreational trail, I would like to add the words unless posted otherwise.
Oh, that was what you were going
Yeah.
with before, but
But
The
won't-
concern is that it would
Yeah.
weaken it.
I think that would weaken it.
I don't necessarily think it would weaken it, because I think it covers everything that is a trail unless it's posted elsewhere or earlier than, or within the city limits. And
So we would be doing the posting, so that's fine.
But that means that we have to explicitly post everywhere?
Correct.
No,
No,
explicitly post everywhere that you will allow it,
right.
Okay.
Right.
because this is no person shall
Right.
operate
Okay,
on the following
Okay.
unless posted otherwise.
okay. And then can you say your number
And then
6?
for adding number 6, I would like to suggest on any private property where posted.
Can we do that?
Yes, I know that we already allow that on certain private roads where they posted, so we will include a number 6 to state on any of the foregoing facilities 1 through 5 that are privately owned.
Or no, I'm saying so that it would, like the Calabasas Lake, so that they could call the sheriff
So we,
and enforce this ordinance.
Right.
and we can't say the items number 1 through 5 on private property because that's up to the property owner to say.
Right,
But
that-
if we add
subject to the
on
adoption
private
and
property
posting.
where posted,
Right.
Just
then the
either
sheriff
way
can
you said
enforce
it's
it.
right.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the correct way to put it.
On private property where posted.
Can I ask a question on that? Just to confirm, would that also include if HOAs with gated communities and they have responsibility for their roads, go ahead and post inside their gates? Would that also include them?
If we kept the language on private property where posted?
So the commons everywhere.
Pam, I think that's a question for you.
Yes.
Yes,
That-
it
Thank
would,
you.
but
That would
remember
be-
that the sheriffs aren't going to patrol those areas. So they'll have to be there seeing it, basically.
Or if someone calls them from the, I know
They
they
can
have
find
it. It would
contracts
have to
with
be observed.
the
And
Oaks or somewhere,
Right,
do
and they
call
do
them.
some patrol behind the private gates.
Okay, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, it won't be the same as
Right.
Calabasas Road or something like that.
But the lake, this would cover, because that's a huge.
I think so, as long as CPHA approves it, yes.
Right.
Which they will.
If I could provide a quick analogy for the, beyond the gate, behind the gate, we've had questions since this year, since the daylighting law went into effect, and that's where you need to park. I think it's 25 feet back from an intersection. And HOAs have inquired, can the sheriff come in and enforce that? And we've said, only if you put a sign at the entrance to your HOA that you are enforcing the California Vehicle Code as an HOA. And then you can call the sheriff, but you're right, they're not patrolling it, but it can be called in. That's my understanding. And so I think this would operate very similarly, that we would, if they post it, and an HOA saw a note, e-bikes on the property being, ridden in an illegal fashion, they could then call the sheriff, and the sheriff can enforce, the vehicle code if they're on a street within the HOA, or our municipal code if they're in like a common area of an HOA. And Pam, if you feel free to jump in if I said something not quite right.
Okay,
That's
Peter,
correct.
we're in the middle of your comments.
Yeah, I appreciate the time here. Again, I am 100% in favor of this ordinance. I'm doing this only to try to help make it better. The one last thing I'd like to bring up is the slide that's up on our screen in front of us. A great graphic. It's got a lot of information here. I think the city needs to create a much simpler graphic that we can use in social media, in mailings, in other ways to let the public know. As I read this, to make it really simple, we need to let parents know that if it doesn't have pedals, you must have a driver's license.
No, oh, right.
There are no class 1, 2, or 3 bikes without pedals, right? So if we state it like that, it really drives the point home. The second thing that we should state is if it travels over 20 miles an hour, you have to be 16 years old to operate it. And there was a second part of that image that's now off the screen, but if we could break it down as simple as that, I think it would really help the parents understand that what they think is an e-bike that they bought at some local retailer or online is not an e-bike, it's a motorcycle. I think that graphic is good, correct information, but it's a little overwhelming. So I think as a city, we really need to take that communication message and make it simple and bulletproof and put it out there along with the notice that this is now potentially a misdemeanor in the city of Calabasas.
Okay. All right, I won't make any long comments other than to say I'm very supportive. This is overdue because, I don't know about you guys, but I get so many complaints. And if you go onto social media and look at what people are commenting on, there's something every day that's posted. There's video footage, there's outrageous conduct. I would ask staff that once this is actually approved, assuming it does get finally approved, I think we need to work with the Chamber of Commerce on informing businesses, because I think they've been a little lax in just not monitoring the situation in their own parking lots. And I think a letter to the HOAs goes out as well, because a lot of the common areas of the HOAs are affected, maybe with some information on how to get to the status of us, them posting the notices and the signage so that we can enforce it. And then we have to enforce it. Our parks, I see people all the time just riding through, and it's just extremely rude and discourteous. And if somebody, God forbid, tells them, hey, please be careful, they get yelled at, they get threatened, they get cussed at, completely inappropriate. So I'm very happy to see this. I want to thank staff for their work. And at this time, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I do want to clarify
With the
that
changes,
includes
I'm
the
sorry.
amendments.
With the amendments and changes discussed, even some provided.
Yes, the ones that were provided, not the one provided by the speaker,
No, by Peter.
by Peter, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
5 and
Yes,
6.
that's what,
Second.
I'm sorry, yes, that should be included.
Yeah, I make a motion with those amendments.
Okay.
Second, thank you.
Okay, so that's Weintraub Shapiro. This item is introduced as an ordinance. I'm going to read the title into the record and waive the full reading of the text. Ordinance number 2026-423, an ordinance of the City of Calabasas amending the Calabasas Municipal Code, Title 10, Vehicles and Traffic, adding Chapter 10.24, Electric Mobility Devices, to establish electric mobility device regulations and approving a CEQA exemption determination.
Can I call for a vote?
Yes, call for a vote. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so 5-0.
And thank you to Public Works team for bringing this forward.
Okay, and when, Curtis, when will this come back? Or Jay, when do you think this will come back?
Oh, for second reading?
Yeah,
I believe it comes back in 2 weeks.
Okay.
That should be March 11th.
Okay, thank you very much. All right.
Okay.
We'll move on to verbal reports. Council verbal reports. Alicia?
Nothing at this time. Oh, I'm always so tired at the end. I forget, but you can go for it.
David?
Thank you. Briefly attended a number of SCAG meetings. One is the LCMC working on revising, among other things, SB 375, jointly up in Sacramento, going to be going Sacramento March 17th and 18th. And important for any students in the area who want to apply SCAG student scholarships, $4,000 each. Applications are open now. I know it's been in the mayor's letter. Please get an application in. Deadline is shortly. Our meetings upcoming this week, next week, are going to focus on our activities and involvement in the games of 28. They're both games. Valley Economic Alliance tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. And I attended with Alicia and Michael, the AE Wright PFC meeting, and we provided information about the city. Michael provided information about the sales tax measure as well. And yesterday attended a Zoom. Ed Albrecht was on it. The Zoom was with Sheriff Luna and other cities talking about public safety and other issues. Thank you.
Ed?
Thank you. Just a couple briefies. I had the Queen Power Alliance Finance Committee this afternoon, and good news about the rates. They continue to go down, and they're going to continue to go down at least for the next 6 months or so. So our reserves are strong, and we can absorb it. So I'm excited. The weather has certainly cooperated with that, so that's a part of it. Valley Economic Alliance with Councilmember Shapiro tomorrow morning at 8, and Mayor's Youth Council next Monday. Looking forward to it. It's exciting to watch the kids' progress.
Okay. Peter?
Yeah, I want to report that I did attend the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy meeting this last Monday. For those of you that aren't aware, the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy receives a lot of the grant funding from the state of California and other organizations and distributes that to worthy projects in the area. And for a budget, we approved the annual budget, which, just to give you a general idea, there's $255 million in encumbered funds, meaning that those have been allocated towards projects, and we keep an eye on the progress of those projects and look for the accountability afterwards. And about $59 million in unencumbered funds, money that the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy needs to figure out where to spend that money. And we also did approve some projects locally here, the MRCA, which is Mountains Recreation Conservation Authority. Thank you. Yeah. Had 3 projects. One, a little over $2 million for vegetation management to protect our hillsides from the inevitable next fire. Also another $590,000 for seasonal workforce development. And interesting to note that about 70% of our seasonal workforce that trains in the area go on to take jobs with national parks and other larger organizations. So we're kind of one of the major hubs of California here for that. And then finally, another $344,500 for assets at the Calabasas Holiday Camp Fire Station. And if you're not familiar with that, the MRCA maintains a fire station at Las Virgenes Road, right close to the Malibu, or right close to the northern border of the southern border of Calabasas. So a lot of money being spent in our local area for fire prevention, and appreciate the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy for letting me participate.
Okay, my report is that I attended the League of California Cities State Board meeting as a board member February 19th to 20th in Berkeley. I attended the League division meeting, LA County division meeting today. Happy to announce that the League board has voted to endorse no on the county tax measure, as has the California Contract Cities Association. So they will be pushing that out to all of the cities throughout Los Angeles County. As has been previously stated, the Chamber of Commerce is, we're sponsoring the lunch tomorrow, and Scott Trujillo will be speaking. On March 10th, as has also been alluded to, I will be speaking as a guest for business and educational leaders for an event sponsored by the Chamber. So that's my report. City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just 3 items. Jay has already left, but wanted to thank him. He organized the first ever, maybe the first annual employee chili cook-off. Those of us who are in the room that competed did not win first place. That trophy went to Sparky Cohen, who is an amazing cook in everything he does. So when you see Sparky, compliment him. I do want to give a shout out to our city clerk's office and our city attorney's office for their efforts recently with preparing for the special ballot election with Measure K. This has been a big undertaking and a lot of moving parts, and that's happened very, very quickly, and they've done incredibly well with that. And then finally, just wanted to let the council know that this Friday, Scott, Michael, and I will be doing deputy liaison interviews. We have 4 candidates that we will be interviewing and hope to be able to find the right fit to work with our community going forward. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. I have no other business, so we are going to be adjourned until, let's see, March 11th, which is our regular meeting.